On my wedding day, I looked across the chapel and saw 30 empty seats where my family was supposed to be. 30. Not one or two. 30. My mother, my father, my sister Chloe, my aunts, cousins, and every relative who had spent my childhood reminding me that family came first. For years I believed them. I was the daughter who remembered birthdays, covered emergencies, and quietly stepped in whenever Chloe needed something. So when I saw those empty seats, my first thought wasn't anger. It was fear. Something had happened. Maybe someone was sick. Maybe there had been an accident. But nobody had even bothered to tell me they weren't coming. My wedding planner knocked softly on the bridal suite door. "Scarlett, we're ready for you." 20 minutes. That's all I had before I was supposed to walk down the aisle. I called my mother. She answered after 4 rings. The first thing I heard was ocean waves. Then laughter. "Mom," I asked, where are you?" There was a pause. "Oh, Scarlett." Her voice was calm, almost annoyed. "Was that today?" My fingers tightened around the phone. "Yes, Mom, my wedding." She sighed. "You're making this into a bigger thing than it needs to be?" I heard Chloe laughing behind her. Then my mother said, "We left yesterday. Chloe and I just needed some time away. Things have been stressful lately." Yesterday. That word hit harder than anything else. They hadn't been delayed. They hadn't forgotten. They had packed their bags the day before my wedding and left. I looked at the empty seats again. For years I'd covered for Chloe. I still remembered missing my college graduation dinner because Chloe had gotten into trouble and Mom said I was the only one who could fix it. Back then, I told myself it was what sisters did. Now I wondered why it had always been me. My throat tightened. I almost begged. "Mom?" I swallowed. "Please." The word barely came out. "Just come." For 1 second, there was silence. Then I heard Chloe laughing again. My mother said, "Scarlett, honestly, stop being dramatic." Something inside me broke, but it didn't disappear. It settled. I ended the call. My hands were shaking when I opened the bridal suite door. Julian was waiting at the end of the aisle. He had seen this side of my family before. 3 months earlier, after my mother had criticized nearly every wedding decision I'd made, he found me sitting alone and crying. He hadn't told me to forgive them. He had simply said, "You don't have to earn your place in your own family, Scarlett." Now he looked at me the same way, like I belonged. His mother reached for my hand as I walked past, and for the first time that day, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt chosen. I walked toward Julian. I got married, and my family thought the worst thing they'd done was miss my wedding. They were wrong, because there was something they had never known about me, something I had deliberately kept away from them. And as the reception began, I finally reached for my phone. I wasn't calling my mother. I was calling the person my family had spent years trying to keep out of my life. And if he answered, everything was about to change. The person I was calling wasn't a stranger. His name was Daniel Mercer, and my family had spent years making sure I believed he wanted nothing to do with me. I stared at his name for several seconds before pressing call. 1 ring, 2, 3. Then he answered, "Scarlett?" His voice hadn't changed. That almost broke me. "Daniel," I whispered. There was a pause. "Are you okay?" I looked across the reception hall at Julian and his family. "My family didn't come," I said. "I know." I froze. "How?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "Did your mother contact you today?" "Yes." I told him about the beach, about leaving yesterday, about the way she dismissed my wedding like it was nothing. Daniel sighed. "She still does that." My stomach tightened. "What does that mean?" "Nothing you need to deal with tonight." "No." I stood up. "You don't get to disappear for 20 years and then tell me what I need to deal with." "You're right." His answer was so calm that it almost hurt. "Then tell me," I whispered. "Why did you disappear?" "I didn't." My breath caught. "What?" "I was told you didn't want me in your life." "Who told you that?" "Your mother." I stared at the floor. "She told me you left." "I never left, Scarlett. For 20 years, I'd believed Daniel had abandoned us. Now I wasn't sure I'd ever been given the whole story." "Why didn't you come back?" "Because I was told staying away was the only way to protect you." My heart began pounding. "Protect me from what?" Daniel went quiet. Then he said, "I can't explain everything over the phone." "Then tell me what you can." "Your father." I froze. "What about him?" "There are things about his old business you were never told." I suddenly remembered how my father used to change the subject whenever I asked about his company. Daniel continued, "I have something that might help you understand." "What?" "A file." "What kind of file?" "Documents from the year your father and I stopped working together." I swallowed. "You worked with my father?" "Yes." My parents had always told me Daniel was simply a man who betrayed him, someone who caused problems and disappeared. Now I wasn't sure any of that was true. When can I see you? Tomorrow morning. Daniel, why now? His voice softened. Because you're finally asking the questions they spent 20 years teaching you not to ask. The call ended. I stood there staring at my phone long after the screen went dark. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my mother's voice. Don't be so dramatic. Then Daniel's voice. I never left. Just before dawn, I finally fell asleep. When I woke, my phone was already buzzing. Daniel had sent me a photograph. It was the first page of the file. I opened it. At the top was my father's name. Underneath it was a date. And beside the date was a signature I recognized immediately. My father's signature. My hands started shaking, because the document said something I'd never heard before. I stared at the photograph until my eyes began to hurt. The document was dated 20 years earlier. At the top was my father's name. Underneath it was Daniel's. For several seconds, I couldn't understand what I was seeing. Then I read the first line again. Transfer of controlling interest. My father's company. The company I'd always been told belonged entirely to him. I zoomed in. There was a handwritten note beneath the signatures. My heart stopped. Daniel Mercer will retain these documents until Scarlett reaches adulthood. Scarlett. My name. I sat down slowly. Why would my father have put my name on a business document? I called Daniel. He answered immediately. You saw it. Yes. My voice shook. Why did my father trust you with these? Because he knew I wouldn't hand them to your mother. I went silent. You're saying my mother knew about this? Not exactly. Then what aren't you telling me? Daniel paused. I'm telling you what I know, Scarlett. Your father believed something was happening inside the company that he couldn't control. I looked back at the photograph. What was happening? I don't know everything yet, but I know he was afraid of someone. Who? I don't have enough evidence to say. For once, Daniel didn't sound like he was avoiding the question. He sounded genuinely uncertain, and somehow that scared me more. Where are the original documents? With me. Then I'll come get them. Tomorrow. No. My voice surprised even me. I'm done waiting. There was silence. Then Daniel said quietly, Good. I swallowed. Why? Because your father left these documents for you, not for me. That sentence changed something inside me. For 20 years, I'd been waiting for someone to explain my own life to me. Maybe I didn't need permission anymore. Send me photographs of the rest. Daniel hesitated. Then he said, Look at the bottom of the page first. I zoomed in. There was another handwritten note. Only 6 words. Your mother must never see this. I stared at the sentence. Suddenly, the wedding didn't feel like the moment my family had abandoned me. It felt like the moment I finally stopped accepting the story they'd given me. I couldn't stop looking at those 6 words. Your mother must never see this. I took a screenshot and sent it to Daniel. What does this mean? His reply came almost immediately. It means your father knew she would try to stop you from finding the rest. My stomach tightened. Why? Because the next page explains what happened between your father and me. A few seconds later, another photograph appeared. I opened it. This time, it was a formal business agreement. My father's name was printed beside Daniel's. The date stopped me. It was 3 days before Daniel supposedly betrayed my father. I read the first paragraph. Then I read it again. Daniel had transferred his remaining shares back to my father, voluntarily. There was no accusation, no lawsuit, just his signature. For years, my parents had told me Daniel tried to take my father's company from him. But this document told a very different story. I called Daniel. Why did you give your shares back? Because your father asked me to. Why? He was preparing to leave the company. I frowned. My mother said Dad worked there until the end. Daniel was quiet. He wanted you to believe that. Why? He was trying to protect something. My heart began pounding. What? A pause. You. I couldn't speak. I looked down at the agreement again. There was another page. At the bottom, in my father's handwriting, was a sentence addressed to Daniel. If Scarlett ever asks what happened to me, give her the truth, but only when she is ready to protect herself. My eyes filled with tears. My father had written my name, not my mother's, not Chloe's, mine. For the first time, I wondered if everything I'd been told about my father's final years had been wrong. Then I noticed something. The agreement jumped from page 3 to page 5. I stared at the screen. Daniel? No answer. I called again. Still nothing. I looked at the document. Where's page 4? My phone buzzed. I expected Daniel. It was my mother. I opened the message. 3 words. Stop digging, Scarlett. I stared at the screen. My hands went cold. She knew. But how? Want to know what was hidden on page 4? Watch the next part 2 to find out, and trust me, the truth is something Scarlett never expected. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Revenge Diaries for more powerful family betrayal, revenge and justice stories,